Hello, everyone. I am back, temporarily or momentarily at least, for one or two candle reviews from the Bath & Body Works White Barn Fall Autumn 2018 candle collections. The one I've got here, I want to do sort of an in-depth sniff and review on. It is called Evening Hearth. I believe, as of what I'm filming right now, which is Saturday, the 18th of August. Actually, 18, interesting. It is not in most stores yet. I was able to nab it. A store was willing to bring it out of the back, which they don't often do these days, but I was able to grab that as well as Cider Lane, which appears in this collection. I sniffed a few from this collection, so this one that I purchased Cider Lane, the classic, and then I also smelled Gather, I believe, which was in orange wax, which was not Harvest Gathering, but rather, I think it was like one of those maple brittles, bourbon maple brittle, something like that. Just a very generic kind of light maple bourbon vanilla scent. Not into it. Too gourmand, but not sweet or really exciting, I think. But I sniffed this one and I loved it right from the get-go. And since there weren't many reviews out yet and I had it, I know people were kind of, on Instagram at least, kind of clamoring and wondering what it was or what it could be. I figured, since I have it, I might as well throw my opinion out there. Of course, your mileage may vary if and when you sniff and purchase it. One thing, as you know, if you watch my reviews, which obviously the past couple of years I have slowed way down on my reviews, really just a couple here and there. I think the last ones were, goodness, was it that spring stuff in probably February, March, I think, of this year. But the thing I've always loved to do is show you a sniff and comparison, in the sense that you haven't smelled this candle. I can tell you what I think about it, what I get from it. That's partially helpful, but it's even more helpful if I can compare it to other candles that you may have sniffed or purchased, to say it is a bit like this, a bit like that. So that's, part of what I do with my collection. I kind of do a deep dive into, the vault, and do a comparison and say it's a little bit like this, it's not like this, or maybe it's a full-on repackage of something. So I'll show you just quickly here what I'll be comparing to. Will be some of these oldies but goodies here, ranging from 2012 up through probably, I think, 2014 or 2015, actually 2016, I believe. So I'll compare. Now, the one thing I will say is there's actually one or two candles that I believe this may be a direct repackage of from years past, but I actually love them so much that I burned through the one of each of them that I had and don't have them to compare to. So that's the one bummer, is I can't say for sure if it is a direct repackage of what I think it may be. But before we get into that, I will show you the candle, give you my impression of it itself, and then do my comparisons so you can get a better idea, hopefully, of what it is. I will say that the aesthetic on this is not the best, but it's certainly not the worst. This sort of like typewriter font, I don't think really evokes at all anything fall or autumnal. The idea of having the label or the name in the middle here with this just like the kind of gold leaves around it, wrap around, that's not bad. I almost would have rather it just be all that with, without the newspaper typewriter font from ye old, and it's just got a standard gold lid like you've seen for years from them. It is a really nice, a beautiful actually, navy blue. It's showing up a bit lighter on camera, but a darker wax than is even showing up on camera. And the notes, not particularly helpful. Cedar kindling, so cedar wood, mug of warm cider, okay, so apple cider, and cozy cashmere throw. So these are those notes that at least that last one, that I do not like, because a cashmere throw, okay, that's it, a feeling, a comfort, more an adjective of how this might make someone feel, but a cashmere throw doesn't have a scent to it. So that's not particularly helpful. The cider, the cedar, that's fine, but they're going for, if they want to say cedar kindling, mug of warm cider, cashmere throw, they should go back to the descriptors that they used for a while there that were kind of foolish of, an evening curled up by the fire with the last bits of cedar burning, clutching your warm mug of cider with the cashmere throw gently strewn about. Something stupid like that doesn't really tell you what the candle is. I just want the notes, and I want as many as they'll tell me so I can get into it and really sniff it. So, that said, oh gosh, oh boy, this might be worth getting more than one. It's really, really nice. I would say it is, there's nothing, as far as Hearth, you might think, oh, is this gonna be lean towards a smoked vanilla or a fireside or something true woodsy or, embers on a fire burning. Not at all. It actually leans more, it's definitely dark, it's spicy, and it's got a sweetness to it, but it's not leather, burnt woods, nothing that's gonna, choke you out. For me, there's definitely, again, a sweetness. There's spices in here that they do not talk about. Certainly there's a heavy hit of cinnamon bark, like a sweet cinnamon bark, not a red hot, not a gourmand, just a true cinnamon bark. There could be some apple in there. It's not cider like your typical spice ciders or cider lanes or really any cider you're used to smelling, but there's a sweetness in there. I do believe there's some cedar wood. Again, cedar wood, think of the, red cedar shavings, or, a pencil shaving, that kind of not quite as powdery or overpowering as, say, an oak, not quite as cooling as maybe a birch, and not, just enveloping and warm the way that sandalwood or something like that may be. For me, it's a cooler, darker, almost a wetter wood that doesn't overpower. It just really blends nicely with many things. So for me, it really is a balance of, maybe some apple wood in there. It's hard to say if it's apple from the cider or apple wood, because the cedar wood and apple wood, I think, can kind of be a bit interchangeable, certainly when there's apple in the candle. And a lot of that cinnamon. What I do think is not noted in here, in addition to the cinnamon bark, is I do get, I would say, almost a cardamom, but it's very, kind of like, the cardamom that you get in a chai. Not nearly as intense as pure cardamom pods, like from Indian food, but there's that bit of, just that little bit of extra spice that's not your typical clove, nutmeg, cinnamon trio. It's more cinnamon bark with a hint of the warmth that cardamom brings in the background. So I really, really love this candle. I haven't lit it yet. I'm sure it will burn very well, or the scent throw will be strong, because it's quite strong sniffing it now. The two candles, I believe it may be repackages of, well, maybe I'll wait for the end for that. Stay tuned if you want that. This is just a standard review. Stay tuned at the end if you want the repackages, or right now we'll get into this fun stuff here to kind of do some comparisons. So I'll just pull those over and we can talk about it all together here. So the first one that popped in my mind when I saw the wax and smelled it was this one that only came out once, that I loved this. I actually loved everything about this. I liked the aesthetic. I mean, compare here the sort of copper true look of the leaves to this kind of cartoony stuff. I like this better. The lid has this really pretty, they've never done since, just these metal leaves that are attached to the lid, that when you burn the candle, if you set it on it like that, it's almost like a candle holder. This was Autumn Night, which really was autumn at night, in the sense that the autumn candle, with some additional darkness added to it. This one was nutmeg, cinnamon, applewood, and cedar. So again, really a lot of what I'm getting in there, the cedar, the applewood, and the cinnamon stick, which could be cinnamon bark. Now, comparing these side by side, they're very similar. They're cousins, not sisters. I would say the Autumn Night actually is a bit drier for me. Almost a stronger cardamom. I'd say it's not quite as sweet, in the sense that this might have the apple wood in it, whereas the Evening Hearth has more of the true, a bit of that apple or that cider that makes it just a bit sweeter. So again, I'd actually say the Evening Hearth is a bit denser and sweeter, just as dark. But yeah, the Autumn Night is amazing and probably has a bit more of that kind of cardamom note to it than the Evening Hearth, or maybe it's just showing up more because the apple in the Evening Hearth is kind of overpowering that. So that's one. Another one I figured I'd just compare it to just for S&Gs, because this mentions cardamom and aromatic wood, and it's a beautiful, beautiful blend. Portside Pumpkin, which was from 2015, failed test scent. Definitely not this, not even really reminiscent of this, but man, that is a good, really good candle. The cardamom in this actually is also quite different. it's kind of overpowered, I think, almost by the mums or whatever kind of floral angle is in here. But man, really, really great. But not related to that one. Then you think, okay, could it be, if anyone even remembers this thing from 2012, I believe, Bonfire Maplewood, which says, the cozy fragrance inspired by gathering around the crackling fires of fall combines sweet fig, cardamom, warm vanilla, and firewood notes. So you've got the idea of the cardamom and some firewood, but Bonfire Maplewood definitely has a powdery sweetness from the fig and more of a, not more of a vanilla, the others don't. That makes this, again, a little bit more, this is truly conceptual in that most people, I think, if you'd sniff it, they wouldn't know what it was. And it's maplewood in the idea that not maple syrup, but the maple wood of a maple tree, which you don't see much in fragrance, but just very, very warm, soft. The fig softens it. Nothing related to that in my mind. Then I brought this sucker out just because it was called Cashmere. Now I will say, I guess the label on the left is a little bit better than the one on the right because that's the most basic font with just a Cashmere throw on it. So 2012 labels were not a great year of labels either. But because it said Cashmere throw, I said, well, let's at least compare. This one, again, back in 2012, was amber, creamy vanilla, and that's basically it. And that, again, was the idea of evoking a cashmere blanket. Very, very heavy on almost a tonka bean style vanilla, and the amber is overpowering in that. So you can see, I mean, I burned it once or twice, and then I realized not a big fan, so not that. The other one, as we go through the, either cashmere, wood, or my idea going through the collection was let me pull out any, the cashmere things, pull out anything that's an apple wood or a cedar wood or something that has cardamom in it. That would bring me to Pumpkin Hayride, which I think was kind of a love or hate scent. Came out back in 2013. For me, it was definitely a hate after I lit it, at least. And that was pumpkins, caramel cider, and golden oak. Again, you could say that the cider, whatever, there could be something in here. I pulled it out because it has an unlisted but very heavy cardamom note. I'd say this leans almost towards your autumn day acorn and figs. The oak is very bright in daytime for me. And there is sort of an earthy, powdery sweetness like a date or a fig, really, a powdered fig, mixed also with a fairly strong cardamom. So much so that with this one, I remember burning it in my apartment in New York. Burned it, blew it out, and hours later, I literally said, man, it smells like, do we have leftover Indian food? Like, we didn't order Indian food. It smells like Indian food in here. Is someone cooking it? And I realized it was literally the leftover scent from the candle. Smelled like I had some chicken curry or tikka masala or something in the house where I was like, okay, love Indian food, but I don't want a candle that is supposed to be a nice fall candle that reminds me literally of that. So it was too heavy on that side. So an evening hearth is not, let's see here. Yeah, not reminiscent of that because, again, the difference between these, I would say it's really, you got this daytime, a lot of differences, but a daytime bright, warm, powdery, overpowering oak versus this one is cool, dark, almost dank, like very dark and almost more mysterious, with the cedar wood, potentially the apple wood, and the cider and the cinnamon bark, which again both add a kind of a sweetness to it. So then, two more to go through here. I'm trying to go fast. Applewood Bonfire. I really like this scent. I haven't finished burning through it because I liked it so much and I hope it would come back, and it never has. This was 2013, much better labels than 2014, and actually I like this collection better than this one on the left here as well. Applewood Bonfire was apples, crackling barks, and fresh cut wood. So they don't give you much, but it's going to be applewood, some apples, crackling barks. Does that mean cinnamon bark? Does that mean whatever? Does that just mean barks on a tree? Really nice scent, not as sweet as I remember it, but you definitely do get those, the embers a bit more truly, the bonfire, almost pulling out hints of fireside or hints of marshmallow fireside, not nearly as heavy with the smoke, but a bit of those kind of embers with the sweetness of apples layered on top of it. More of a fresh apple versus a cider. Really, really nice. I would say the difference between these two for me is, again, Evening Hearth still has additional spices to it, much stronger on the cinnamon, and the apple is much sweeter. So this one was People who may not like Applewood Bonfire style scents, I think would probably still like Evening Hearth, a little bit more, for the folks that like something that's still kind of sweet, that would do it where Applewood Bonfire wouldn't. And then finally, what I think this is actually closest to is Cinnamon Pine Cone, which this I think actually may have also been a failed test scent back in 2016, late 2016, in the holiday collection actually. The notes on this one were cinnamon bark, fresh pine, aromatic cedar, and juniper. So you got that cinnamon bark, you've got the cedar, those are pretty close in notes there. Now, this one does lean more holiday because it does have a sparkling brightness to it, the cinnamon, almost a bit of an outdoors scent to it, I think because of the juniper, which again, could be confused for pine, but does bring a bit of a sweetness or that outdoors kind of rush that you would expect. They're very similar though. The cinnamon pine cone is stronger, which again could be the fact that there's actual pine in this one, which I don't believe Evening Hearth has pine. It has cedar, but not pine. So the Evening Hearth is a little bit softer. Cinnamon Pine Cone is kind of Evening Hearth amped up, some pine thrown in, and the juniper question mark. So this is the astringent pine and even stronger cinnamon, but very similar to sort of Evening Hearth. This is it amped up and made, blasted with holiday style. Now, coming back to what I said a bit ago of what I think this could be repackaged of a couple of candles, and that is, to me, it smelled at first sniff, and granted we're talking 2 years ago probably at this point, pumpkin woods and/or spiced autumn wreath, which was also known as welcome in a collection around Thanksgiving that had gather, which had thankful, welcome, and it was things like chestnut and clove and maybe harvest gathering, not sure, but those two were quite similar to me, not the same exactly, but the notes, just I can quickly compare, and I'll throw a photo in here for anyone who sniffed it if you don't remember them. The welcome, the autumn spiced wreath, was fresh balsam sprigs, cinnamon bark, and clove. Probably more in there, but they didn't say. And that one was very warm, rich, had that sweetness, kind of generic a little bit, but a really nice version of generic, just kind of like you could find this kind of candle anywhere and it would be, oh sure, this is fall. But really, really liked that one. And then the pumpkin woods was woodland spruce, cedar, clove buds, and smoky vanilla. So again, some similarities there in notes. I think generally speaking, they're considered to be different, but for me at least, and honestly it's been so many years I could be getting confused. I remember when I reviewed Cinnamon Pine Cone originally, I think I said that I thought it was a repackage of Pumpkin Woods, but when I compared them, Pumpkin Woods there was more of a dry afternoon wood scent to it versus the dark, sweeter, brighter Cinnamon Pine Cone woods. So again, my memory could be tricking me there, but certainly Pumpkin Woods had that woodsy, kind of a pine, a bit of a balsam angle to it, but then really counterbalanced with the clove and kind of a smoky vanilla. Again, whether they're the same, I don't know. This one, I will say when I first sniffed it, my scent memory is usually pretty decent as far as picking out familiar blend. So I might not be able to say, oh, for sure it was X candle, or sometimes 5 days later it'll hit me, oh, this was some random thing from 8 years ago. But I can at least usually say, oh, this is not new or is new. The example of that maple cinnamon pancakes from a few years ago, that was a clear repackage of pumpkin caramel latte. Didn't make sense, so people would sniff it and they wouldn't necessarily get that originally, but it kind of hits you, oh, that's exactly what that is. For me, I didn't have Pumpkin Woods or the Spiced Autumn Wreath long enough beyond just burning them 1 year for a couple of weeks until it was gone each time to remember exactly. But in execution, if nothing else, there's a similarity when it comes to the general notes, the mood it evokes, the feeling. And again, I would say for me, a fair assessment to say let's see here. Almost really a blend of Autumn Night and your cinnamon pine cone, in the sense that the unique blend of spices kind of match the Autumn Night in the sense that there's that applewood, there's the cedar, there's the cinnamon, and then when you've got the cinnamon pine cone, which is cinnamon bark and cedar, that's the same. Kind of what both are missing there that I do think Evening Hearth has is more of that apple. I would say it could be fall. It could also very much be considered a holiday, through November and December, a holiday candle as well. I really, really do enjoy it. If nothing else, it's a great replacement for some of those candles that I mentioned that I really enjoyed and miss. The more I'm thinking, I do think that this is certainly missing the smoky vanilla that Pumpkin Woods had, and again leans more towards the cinnamon and the cedar and the sweetness and again, Evening Hearth. They got the evening part right. The Hearth, so-so, but really a really nice blend, and I'm happy to see that it's something that Bath & Body Works is bringing out, because a lot of the ones over the past few years just have not been hits for me beyond their sort of standard leaves, autumn, harvest pumpkin patch, whatever they want to call it, pumpkin carving. So really, really enjoy this and recommend it. That is it for the rambling. Again, back in the day, I used to be able to very, very clearly say exactly what I thought and exactly something was a similarity to something else or a repackage. But again, as time goes on and it's been so many years since I smelled certain scents, whether I have them or not, it gets a little tougher, and I don't have as much, memory of the past couple of years with this just because I don't purchase the way that I used to. But hopefully this was at least helpful, entertaining, or a little bit enlightening with the Evening Hearth. If nothing else to say, it's really, really nice, and I recommend checking it out once it hits stores in the next couple of weeks. I will be following up with one more review for now, at least. I'm going to sniff the White Pumpkin that's in sort of that strange garden-esque collection that's kind of a transition from summer to fall. But beyond that, be sure to check out my other, let's say, main YouTube channel, The Gentleman Next Door. Haven't been super active there, to be honest, but really want to kind of relaunch that and get back in saddle, because Fabrice and I both do definitely miss spending time with you guys here on YouTube. And until next time, take care.